Hey, Jarod. Try and stay awake for us. Can you open your eyes, Jarod? Jarod, open your eyes, please.
Hey, Jarod, how's it going? Hey, baby, stay with us. Stay with us, Jarod. Stay with us, baby.
His oxygen sat's 86.
Hey, Jarod.
Pulse is 71.
Stay with us, Jarod.
Hi, my name is Jarod, and this is my incredible story.
When I first met Jarod, I knew right away he was someone I might want to marry. I loved his contagious smile, and how he loved other people, how he cared for other people, and his personality I was attracted to right away. We started dating. I loved his spirit of adventure. I love adventure myself. I love to snowboard and mountain bike and hike and be in the outdoors and God's beautiful creation. And being able to do that with Jarod has been so much fun.
Fast forward a little bit, we got engaged and we got married, and we both were really into mountain biking at the time. We loved doing all this stuff, and we spent so much time outside. I don't think that I was pursuing God in the way that was what he intends for us. And I think Amber was, she was praying to God and asking for God to just get a hold of my heart and to turn my heart towards him. God totally changed my heart. He revealed himself to me in a way that I've never experienced before or had never experienced before. I really learned what it was to be a believer. I think before I was always a cultural Christian. So that was a really pivotal moment in my spiritual journey.
The weather that day, if I remember right, maybe it was a little overcast, but totally rideable.
I was writing down one of my favorite lines on this bike park, and I hit a wooden feature. It's called a shark fin.
And we've done this hundreds of times, like nothing to it. It's a blast to ride. The difference was that we didn't know it was slippery. We didn't know that. So he goes up on it, and his front tire slips.
As soon as I hit it, my bike slid up over the top of that wall. I'm assuming my body must have just slammed into the wall, and then I slid down and fell, we think maybe about 10 or 12 feet to the rocks below. I barely remember anything about the accident, but I remember laying there on my back. I could see him approach. I can't move anything. No matter what I try to do, nothing is gonna move. I couldn't even breathe on my own. As soon as I hit it, my bike slid up over the top of that wall. I'm assuming my body must have just slammed into the wall, and then I slid down and fell to the rocks below.
I run down there. I'm kind of looking at him like, "Hey, Jarod, you okay?" And he's not responding, And he starts turning purple. I'm like, why is he turning purple? This is, and I start realizing, I'm like, he's not breathing. And so people were Google searching how to do CPR. I think I plug his nose, blow in.
I was painting outside. My brother comes up and he said, "Amber, you need to get in the truck. There's been an accident, and we need to go." And so I asked if Jarod was still alive, and he said, "I don't know." And I remember on the way there that if there's one thing that could make this situation better, it was prayer, and I believe in the power of prayer.
Just crying out, saying, "God save Jarod. Jesus, 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 we need you."
Well, on the ride up, while we were in the ambulance, they wouldn't let me stay in the back with Jarod. I was in the front seat, and I was just so relieved that he was still alive. We got to the hospital. They took me around. I had to go and wait in the waiting room, not knowing if he was still alive. I finally got to go in and see Jarod, and he was surrounded by a team of people keeping him alive. It was hard. I remember looking around, thinking, is this real? What's going on? Jarod wasn't conscious, even when I said his name. there was nothing there. We learned that he broke his neck. C1, C2, it's the worst neck break that anyone could have. It's good that he was alive, but there was very little hope.
The next thing I remember is waking up and Amber was there with me, and you could tell she was very upset. And she told me that I had been in an accident and that I was completely paralyzed. It was such a surreal feeling to just realize that, like, I can't move anything. No matter, like, what I try to do, nothing is going to move. I can't even breathe on my own.
With each day that would go on, we would pray, and God would answer in the most kind and gracious way. As we kind of learned to deal and cope with the situation, things started to get better. It felt like there was light. Even though we couldn't see the end of the tunnel, there definitely was a feeling of, okay, this is getting better. We're gonna make it. It's gonna be okay, regardless of the outcome, regardless of the end. We're gonna be okay. This was in the middle of our hospital stay. I was feeling particularly discouraged, and I asked that morning. In my prayer journal, I wrote, God, send encouragement. I need encouragement today. And that morning, our pastor showed up to pray for Jarod in his hospital room.
He prayed for me and prayed that God would heal me miraculously. And, we had already been praying this, but we were just so fully expectant that God was going to do something in that moment. And so was our pastor. He was so full of faith that God was going to heal me. And it was almost like a surprise. Like, after that prayer, I'm like God's gonna move. Like, this is such a huge miracle to tell of his goodness and how he works in people's lives. And like, we just believed that God was going to turn the whole situation around in that moment. It would be one of those, like, raising Lazarus from the dead, like, big faith moments where God shows up.
And I thanked the Lord for the situation that he was putting us through, because I knew that whatever the enemy meant for evil, God is in the work of redeeming every single situation.
The next Wednesday night, the church prayed for me, and we were just begging God to give us a sign of something, some glimmer of hope in the situation. And while the church was praying, Amber was like, Jarod, your toe just twitched. And I was like, there's no way. It was that first confirmation from God that, like, this wasn't the end of the story. It was totally just the beginning.
We were transferred out to a long-term care facility. When we got there, it was really, really hard. The time that we had in the intensive care unit, we were surrounded by our friends and family members. Our church was lifting us up in prayer. We were surrounded by hope and positivity. And then just Jarod and I are moved to another state, and it's just the two of us. But the reality of the situation is, when people experience an injury that causes them to be paralyzed, most of them don't get better.
And they also classified me as complete, meaning I didn't have the potential to regain anything back.
And when we got there, we just realized that no one believed that God could move and work in his body. No one believed in a miracle.
The Lord just spoke to my heart that this isn't going to be instant.
And something changed when we anointed that room with oil. We just felt the heaviness lift.
I had a dream that he was hanging on with his hands to a rope behind our boat. His arms were working, and that was coming at some point in the future. And so we just decided in faith to write on the board of his hospital room that Jarod was going to walk out of the hospital.
And about this time, they took me to get they called it a sniff test to see if the diaphragm is functioning. And at that point, my diaphragm was not functioning in the least. And so my lungs could not get any air in on their own. And so I couldn't breathe.
The doctors come and visit us later and they say, this is a hard thing to hear, but we just did the tests and your diaphragm is paralyzed. You'll be on a ventilator for the rest of your life. And that was really, really hard to hear. We were praying that before the test, God would heal his diaphragm so the test would be proof that God healed it. And that didn't happen. But we prayed.
And they're like, you have this test that says that your diaphragm's not working, like you're going to be on a ventilator for the rest of your life. Eventually, we talked them into doing more weaning trials, which is where they take you off the ventilator. And they were so hard. I think I worked up to about maybe 10 minutes. And I mean, it was everything I could do to last 10 minutes off the ventilator. Just felt like I was suffocating, as if I was like drowning. I remember this weaning trial, halfway through, something changed. It was like a switch flipped, and I was able to breathe easier. And I would look down and I could see like my chest was expanding when I'm breathing. Like my diaphragm was clearly working.
The respiratory therapist who was in the room noticed the change, and she said, I think your diaphragm is working. She was a Christian, and she started telling everyone else, his diaphragm is working. Jarod was able to go longer and longer and longer. After a while, he's going hours, and all of the respiratory care team, they're having this discussion. They're like, how can it be possible? How is this going on? No one believed that his diaphragm was working.
It took me back down. This was maybe a month and a half after the initial sniff test that showed that my diaphragm was not functioning. And they did the sniff test and the x-ray showed that my diaphragm was functioning, and not just functioning, but functioning like a level that is almost normal.
The whole hospital was talking about Jarod. When people would come visit Jarod, they would know exactly who he was, because this hospital has been around for 100 years. They have never seen anyone experience their diaphragm being completely paralyzed and then being completely healed. It was amazing, something only God could have done.
Everything has been hard, but God has always come through and allowed me to, get on to the next thing.
So we had written on Jarod's hospital room wall that Jarod was going to walk out of the hospital. And sure enough, slowly but surely, God was moving and working in Jarod's body. His diaphragm began to function so that he could breathe on his own. His toe began to move, and then slowly his legs would move just a little bit. He started to get a little bit of movement in his arms, and they knew our goal was for Jarod to walk. And so a few days before we were scheduled to go home, they bring out a walker.
And they would stand me up into it, and two people would help me take, one step at a time. And I was able to actually take steps.
And right then we're like, all right, God, you are good. He's walking. This is real.
Wow, God, you are gonna allow me to walk again. Fast forward, after a couple weeks of therapy, I was able to get in that walker and start actually taking some decent steps. I think I walked like 200 or 300 feet. The day that we checked out, I walked from the gym out the front doors, and there was a whole crowd of people there just cheering me on. It was so exciting.
It was just a powerful moment of God showing off his goodness and how he has touched Jarod's body, and the encouragement that it brought us, that it brought the people who have been praying for Jarod day in and day out, to know that God hears us, he sees us, and he answers our prayers. We had no idea everything that was going into Jarod's care and what he would need. And it turns out that we would need an accessible van. Well, Jarod's really tall. He's 6'3", but it turns out that a lot of these accessible vehicles, because of how they have to build them and convert them, they don't fit tall people. And so it really limited our options. We'd have to go with an extra tall van. There aren't very many of them. And anytime you get into the medical world, things go from normal prices to very expensive. And I was always one of those people, I was like, if we ever have kids, like, I'm not gonna drive a minivan. I'm not a minivan person. We love adventure. I was just like, God, minivan, here it is. This is what we need. We need an extra tall minivan. I remember kind of finding a deal on one that was in New York. I'm like, I can't fly to New York to get a vehicle right now. So one day over lunch, I found this adventure van, and it looked like it had a lift in there for wheelchairs. And it's one thing when you are looking for vehicles, when you just see a picture of it, you don't know if it's accessible or not. We needed a whole lift to get his chair into the vehicle. So it had a lift on it, but it didn't say anything about the lift in the listing. It was 45 minutes away. I was like, this, first of all, it looks really cool. It looks adventure-y, I like that. And it looks like it's exactly what we need. I show it to my brother and he said, Amber, if that's actually the price of that, you need to go buy that today. Sure enough, it has everything that we need. We don't need to make any changes to it. And we were able to get the van that was 45 minutes away and have it the next day, which was just a God story. So we call it our God van. It's amazing. It's exactly what we need. It's tall. Jarod can have all of the room that he needs. He's not scrunched in there. And it's our adventure mobile. We love it so much. When God says he will provide, he means it. Above and beyond everything that we need, he provides. So we are home now and adjusting to life. It's been a lot.
I mean, we pray every night that God will continue the healing in my body, that he will complete it, and I believe he will. Things are coming back. My legs are coming back. I'm able to stand up out of my chair and I can walk with a walker. I'm starting to walk with a cane. I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep working on it. I believe God is going to heal me. And so I'm going to keep working as hard as I can to get to the point where I'm 100% healed. My hope is that one day I'll be able to get back on a regular bicycle and go on a ride. And I hope that that's the case. But if it's not, God's still using my story to reach people and to show people that there's hope in really tough situations.
And through this entire process, my prayer is, yes, God, whatever you have for me, my answer is yes. Prior to Jarod's accident, I filled a lot of my life with busyness, and I didn't have the time to listen. And the fact that we're able to partner with him in the work that he is doing is exceeding joy. It's amazing, and I am just so excited that God chose us to be a part of this story.
God is clearly at work. I don't believe he's done, and I'm so excited to see how he finishes my incredible story.